Okay, so let's solve the following problem. Okay, so we have the following equation: square root of x plus square root of x minus square root of 1 minus x equals 1. Now, how to solve this problem? Now, you'll see whenever we are working with radical equations, the idea is to get rid of the square roots. So we can solve the equation just as we would solve a regular equation, right? So in this case, let's try to get rid of all these square roots we have here. The very first thing we can do is move this square root of x to the other side of the equation by subtracting it from 1. So in this case, we will get the square root of x minus the square root of 1 minus x equals 1 minus the square root of x. Okay, so that's a great step. Why did we do that? That's because we are interested in leaving just one square root on one side of the equation. This will help us solve the equation faster and easier. So now we are going to square both sides of the equation, so the equation remains equivalent. So let's do that. We're going to square both sides of the equation. Square the left side and the right side. Okay, what do we achieve by doing this? We can get rid of this first square root we have here by squaring it. So this one goes away with this power of 2 we have here. So we get x minus the square root of 1 minus x equals. In this case, we're going to square this binomial. We can do that by multiplying 1 minus square root of x times 1 minus square root of x. Or we can use the binomial formula to do that. But in this case, I'll just write the answer. In this case, it will be 1 squared minus 2 times 1 times the square root of x minus, or plus, I mean plus the square root of x squared. Square root of x squared. Okay, there we go. Square root of x squared. Give me a second. Okay. There we go. Okay. Why will this be a plus sign? It's because we are squaring a negative. Since we are squaring a negative, it becomes positive. Okay, so let's simplify this a little. Let me copy it here. Okay, 1 squared equals just 1. 2 times 1, 2 times the square root of x is just 2 square root of x. And minus x squared is just x, right? Because this square goes away with this square root, so we get this. We can further simplify this by subtracting x from both sides. When subtracting x from both sides, we will end up with minus the square root of 1 minus x equals 1 minus 2 square root of x plus x minus x. Now, notice this plus x minus x cancel each other because x minus x is just 0. So, they cancel each other, leaving us with the following: minus square root of 1 minus x equals 1 minus 2 square root of x. Okay, so next, notice we still have two square roots we need to get rid of. In this case, we will need to square both sides of the equation again. That way we will get rid of this square root we have here. So let's do that. Okay, so we are going to square the left side and we are going to square the right side. Okay, so let's square both sides of the equation, right? In this case, this negative becomes a positive because any negative number squared is a positive. This square root we have here gets cancelled by the power of 2. So we end up with 1 minus x. And this one is equal to 1 minus 2 square root of x squared. This is 1 squared minus 1 times 2 times 2 square root of x, 2 square root of x, plus minus 2 square root of x squared. Okay, so now we can go ahead and simplify this algebraically. We can, well, we will end up with 1 minus x equals 1 minus 4 square root of x, 4 square root of x plus 4x, right? Because we have this minus 2 that is squared, so minus 2 squared is 4, and square root of x squared is just x. Okay, so in this case, we can move this 1 and this 4x to the left side of the equation. They will be subtracting there. So in this case, we will have 1 minus x minus 1 minus 4x equals minus 4 square root of x. Square root of x. This 1 becomes a negative, this 4x becomes a negative, so the equation remains equivalent. Okay, so in this case we combine like terms. This one we have here goes away with this one. They cancel each other because they are subtracting. 1 minus 1 is 0. So we have minus x minus 4x, which are equal to minus 5x. Minus x minus 4x equals minus 5x. And this one is equal to minus 4 square root of x. Minus 4 square root of x. Okay. Okay, so we still have one square root here. We can get rid of this square root by squaring both sides of the equation. So let's go about that. Let's square both sides of the equation. This is going to be minus 5x squared and minus 4 square root of x squared. Okay, so minus 5x squared is the same as 25x squared, and minus 4 square root of x is the same as 16x. 4 squared is 16 and square root of x squared is just x. Okay, so in this case we can go ahead and move this 16x to the left side by subtracting it from both sides. So we get 25x squared minus 16x equals 0. In this case, we can go ahead and factor it. So we get a common x out. So this will be x times 25x minus 16. And this one is equal to 0. This equation here gives us two different equations we can use to solve for x. So in this case we have that x equals 0 is our first equation, And our second equation is 25x minus 16 equals 0. So either x equals 0 or 25x minus 16 equals 0. We can go ahead and solve this equation for x. In this case, we can move the 16 to the right side of the equation, so we have 25x equals 16. And this 25 can be divided to both sides of the equation, so we end up with x equals 1625 or 25th. Now, these are our two possible answers. One of these is our answer to this equation, or maybe both. We need to check it out. How to check this out? Well, we need to substitute each of these answers into the original equation to see if the equation becomes true. So let's take the original equation, this one we have here, and let's substitute each into it. So let's take the proof. So we have our original equation. Let's use x equals 0, which is our first option. So we substitute every x for a 0 and solve. The left side of the equation should be the same as the right side, right? So the equation is true. So let's copy this equation and let's get rid of the zeros, since the zeros aren't doing anything to the equation really. So we get rid of this, we get rid of this, and we get rid of this, and this remains negative. Okay, so it would be the square root of negative square root of 1 equals 1. We know the square root of 1 is just 1, so it would be the square root of negative 1 equals 1. Now, the square root of a negative number is not defined for the real numbers. It will give us a complex answer. So, x equals 0 is not an answer to our equation. X equals 0 is not an answer to our equation. Let's try the second answer. X equals 25. So, let's do this. Let's substitute each x for 16/25. So let's do that. Square root of 16/25 plus square root of 16/25 minus square root of 1 minus 16/25. Okay, so let's try to solve this. Okay, whenever we're taking the square root of a fraction, each number in the fraction should be affected by the square root. So the square root of 16/25 will be just 4/5, right? Because the square root of 16 is 4 and the square root of 25 is 5. So let's see the next one. 1 minus 16/25 is the same as 9/25. So let's solve this. This becomes 9/25. Okay, let's continue solving this. In this case, we can take the square root of 9/25. The square root of 9 is 3 and the square root of 25 is 5. So this becomes 3/5. Right? So let's do this subtraction. 16/25 minus 3/5. We end up with 1/25. Okay, so this one becomes 1/25. And we can now take the square root of 1/25. So we have that the square root of 1 is 1 and the square root of 25 is 5. So this becomes 1/5. And 4/5 plus 1/5, it's the same as 5/5. which is equal to 1. So 5/5 is equal to 1, so 1 equals 1, so it checks. Our only answer, I'll write it here, our only answer is x equals 16/25. I'll write it like this, x equals 16/25. And this is our answer. I hope this helps. Please don't forget to subscribe and click on the like button. If you wish for online tutoring with me, I'll be happy to help you. Just click on the link in the description.